Hey, I hope you're having a great day today. Today I'll be talking with my new friend Whitney Barbary, and she will share her inspiring message that I hope you really take something from. It's not the usual message we have in these interviews. She doesn't talk about physical scars, but rather the emotional kind. And I still think it'll be very relevant to something you might be facing. I will give you a heads up. There are a few places where we have some minor technical difficulties, so please just hang in there. It's not like you're watching the bullet time scene from The Matrix for a complete half hour. So just make it. We'll just we'll make it through. And so I hope you really enjoy this conversation with Whitney. Hey, welcome back to Scar Bears. This is Chris D.T. Gordon, and I'm joined now by my new friend, Whitney Barbary. That's
Yes.
correct. The last name is
Yes,
Barbary?
yes, that is how
All
you
right.
say it.
Awesome. How are you today, Whitney?
I'm good. I'm doing well.
Excellent. Well, today I want to take our conversation that we usually have in a different way, in a different route. Usually on Scar Bears, we talk about physical scars and how we
Mhm.
deal with them. But Whitney, you have a different story to share. If you
Yes.
would, please take us on your journey.
Okay, this is a journey. We'll do the medium long.
Okay.
Because if I shorten it too much, it leaves stuff out. But yeah, I thought it was interesting to hear about your podcast, and I thought, well, that's such a cool podcast, right? So needed. Because I think between emotional and physical scars and wounds, I think it really does all come down to mindset and what we choose to do after that, and how we choose to proceed and let it affect our lives. So this is a really cool concept for a podcast. So
Thank
my
you.
story, you're welcome. So my story, I will kind of just fly through childhood, but I do want to touch on, because this is where I really think it started. Um, I have a brother and a father that are incredibly intellectually, they're just very smart. They're very intelligent. It comes very naturally. You know, my dad was a professor at the United States Naval Academy when he was in the Navy. When I was growing up, my brother kind of got that gene. Um, and so that's just not my thing. Like, I'm street smart, I'm not really book smart. So I do remember growing up and just feeling like I wasn't getting things, I wasn't smart enough, I wasn't measuring up. My brother was just this natural athlete. You know, he was valedictorian. I think he was playing varsity sports like his freshman year. It was just like everything came so easily, and he was just this really good kid, and he never got in trouble. And so I grew up like, I wasn't like that. I didn't feel like I was smart. I wasn't naturally athletic. I wasn't valedictorian. I wasn't playing varsity sports. I was getting in trouble, like. And so it kind of just seemed like the more I would like go off the deep end, the more I would just kind of confirm to myself that like I was the black sheep of the family, and I was just going to own that. And like the more disappointed my parents got in me, it just kind of unraveled. So when I got into my 20s, I was really carrying around this wound of like, I just wasn't enough. But I'm also I can be very loud. I can be very opinionated. I can be very, like, I'm an Enneagram 8. Shout out to any eights. You understand me if you are an 8. So I kind of was teetering. Are you an 8,
You
Chris?
know,
Or you know of eights?
I have not taken the Enneagram yet,
Okay.
but I
Yeah.
just heard about it a couple days ago, and so the fact that you mentioned that makes me laugh because
Yeah.
that's something
Do
I'm going
it.
to have to look into.
Totally do it, because you'll never feel more validated and seen till you figure out your number and you're like, oh my gosh. So Enneagram 8, the description is we're called the challengers. So I was always teetering this line of like, I was too much for people, but I also wasn't enough for people. And I was like, what do you do with that? What do you do when you're too much and not enough all at the same time? So my 20s, so starting out, I got pregnant. I was not married. I got pregnant when I was 20 to a guy that I wasn't even supposed to be dating. So I was 20, but I was still living with my parents. They were paying for college. They were kind of setting the rules. And I had been dating this guy. They could not stand him. He just wasn't good for me. But then I got pregnant. So we were like, oh, what do you do when you get pregnant? Oh, you get married. That's what you do. So we got married. And we got married a month after I turned 21. And my daughter was a month old when we got married. And this is really where it started for me. So on our honeymoon, second night of our honeymoon, we got into this huge I mean, it was very verbally abusive, physically abusive, the relationship. We got into this huge fight in the hotel room. Like he trashed the room, like it broke this painting, like it was just bad. It was all bad. The whole room was like on my parents' credit card. All I could think was like, oh my God, all these damages are going to get charged to my parents' credit card. And they didn't know any of these things were happening, like in this relationship. Like they didn't know it was abusive. Like they didn't. So I'm like, I just got married and I feel like everything's going to unravel. And so really we were married for 3 years and it was just very verbally and physically abusive for 3 years. He did end up cheating on me and we tried counseling and that didn't work. So I ended up leaving. But what happened was that marriage and the way that he treated me just kept confirming this thing inside of me that like, see, you're not worth it. You're not worth anything. Like this is all you're going to deserve for the rest of your life. If you were worthy, he'd be treating you better. He's not, because you're not worthy. Like it was just confirming all these like childhood wounds that I had that I wasn't addressing. So I divorced him when I was 24 and I had been pregnant when I was 21 and I got married when I was 21. So now I'm 24, I'm newly divorced, I'm single. And I'm like, I don't know what it's like to be a 21-year-old. Like I'm going to go. So then I'm like, it's bars, drinking, partying, guys, friends, like late nights, you know, it was all the things. Like now I was like living it up. I was really just trying to put a Band-Aid on all of this emotional like wounds that I had that were actually debilitating me because I was not, I mean, I wasn't like an alcoholic or anything, but I was just partying. Like I was like a college kid or something. And I was like, I had a cosmetology license. I kind of just quit doing hair. I went back to being a car hop at Sonic. Like I'm 24 years old. I'm working at a fast food restaurant. I'm partying, you know, my nights away. And I'm thinking I'm living the life. And now looking back, it's like all my other friends from high school are like getting master's degrees and like starting families and like getting real jobs in corporate America. And I just think I'm like living it up. And it was really just me not wanting to deal with the wounds that I had, carrying around a lot of emotional scars that I didn't want to deal with. And I just thought like all these things were fulfilling me. And really it was just putting like, it was like the more I would bleed out emotionally, I would just put more Band-Aids on it. Like I was like, oh, I'm bleeding through these 20 Band-Aids. Let me just stick a couple more Band-Aids on that, which was like more friends, more relationships, you know, spending all my money shopping, going out of town, bars, getting attention from guys. And when I was 27 or 28, I might have been getting ready to turn 28. I actually got pregnant again and I didn't know who the father was. I had relations with an ex-boyfriend and I had relations with a guy that I had just started dating. So, and my dad was like, I grew up in a Christian home and my dad was a pastor for a time when I was growing up. And my, you know, mom sang in the choir and played in the church orchestra. And my brother I'm doing all this and my brother's graduating from Bible college. And so I'm like, I can't tell anyone that I'm pregnant again. And I don't know who the father is. Like that can't happen. So in my just emotionally wounded state, like I couldn't even think clearly. And so these, you know, I'm talking to these two guys. I'm just letting them know up front, like this is the situation. And they both were like, I don't want anything to do with that. You have to have an abortion. And I'm conflicted because I'm like, that goes against everything in my Christian faith. But then this other side of me that's completely wounded is like, you can't bring a child into this world. Look at you. You're a mess. Like you can't raise another kid. You can barely raise the one that you have. Like, so I did end up having an abortion and emotionally it just ripped me to shreds. I did not anticipate the emotional. So it was just another wound. And so it was like, I realize now looking back, I spent my teenage years and all of my 20s, like just putting wounds on top of wounds on top of wounds and just slapping these little Band-Aids on it and not addressing the fact that they were like bleeding and like infected and they were, you know, so I did that. I was emotionally not okay from that for probably 2 years, but it was such a secret that I couldn't tell anyone I did it. So I couldn't talk to anyone about it. I didn't want anyone to know that I did it. So again, I'm just carrying around all these scars that like I can't, they're not even scars at that point. They're really wounds that I haven't even let heal to become scars was the problem. And so, but I'm just perpetuating this belief that like, you're damaged goods, and look at your whole life. Like everything you do is just proof that you're damaged. You're not worthy. You're not worth anything. And so in return, I just keep making more decisions to prove how unworthy I am. And it's funny because when I coach people, like I'm a life coach, and I like to show them these cycles they get in where I'm like, no, the actions that you're taking in your life. See, this is what happens. We take actions in our life, and if they're to our detriment, we're like, yeah, see, it's just because I'm unworthy. And it's like, no, you believe that you're unworthy, so you show up in your life that way. But you think because you keep doing these things and getting these results, it's proof that you're unworthy. It's not. Like, you're creating it out of this place, out of these wounds. You've been wounded, and you're not fixing the wound. So you just keep showing up in your life as an unworthy person, and you just create more unworthiness by the decisions you make in that broken place. So I, about a year after my abortion, I met a guy, which I wasn't even emotionally healed. It was not time for me to meet a guy. I met a guy online, like on an online dating website, which again, I'm like, what was I doing? I was just so messed up that I just thought, oh, I just obviously need a man in my life that will make me feel so much better for all the emptiness I feel, right? Like, let me go bring another individual into my mess. So what happened was, because of the way I was showing up in my life as an unworthy, human, I was attracting men that also didn't see my worthiness. So I meet a guy, he's in the military. About 8 months after we start dating, we got engaged. About a year in, so 4 months later, I marry him. I pick up my life. I move almost 2 hours away to Fort Campbell because he was in the Army. And
Fort
about
Campbell's
a month after,
where? Sorry.
That is in Clarksville, Tennessee, which is kind of like about 30 minutes away from Nashville. So if you're leaving where I live in Indiana and you're going to drive to Nashville, you will actually drive by Fort Campbell. It's on the way to Nashville. So gotcha. Like right there. So I'm right outside Nashville. About, I'd say maybe 2 months after we get married, he gets sent to Louisiana to do pre-deployment training. He has to go away for 6 weeks. Then he's going to get deployed. So while he's gone, I start getting messages on social media from this woman that like, I don't know, but she keeps sending me friend requests. And I'm like, what the heck? So I keep declining them. She keeps sending them. And something in my knower, in my gut was like, something's going on here. So I just sent her this message and I'm like, hey, you keep friend requesting me. I know I don't know you. I don't recognize you. Like, what is it that you want from me? Like, something's not right here because you won't leave me alone. And she was just like, yeah, you don't know me, but I know your husband. And I was like, oh God, where is this going? So I was like, okay. And she just tells me, like, she sends me pictures of this baby that's like 2 months old. She's like, this is your husband's baby. I don't want your husband. I just want my child support. And I was like, so I'm 29 and I'm like, this is like, what is happening? And the sad thing, Chris, is I was actually at a point in my life where it was devastating, but I had like been through so much that I kind of was just like, of course, these things, and I'm thinking things are happening to me as if I'm not creating this stuff. Not that he didn't do something wrong, but I was putting myself in. So I'm just like, oh my God. So long story short, we did get a paternity test. It was his child. She had been pregnant pretty much the entire time we'd been dating, been engaged. I didn't even know she existed. He basically had like just blocked her from everything, blocked her phone number, blocked her on social media, just like really tried to remove her. I don't know if he thought she was just going to go away, but I'm 2 months married and I've moved my entire life and he's got another woman pregnant. And I just remember like, he wasn't really owning up to it. And I just remember thinking like, we have this paternity test. Like you can't, the fact that you're denying this, like, I just had this moment where I was like, what am I doing? Like at some point though, no matter what he's doing and how wrong it is, I have to take ownership for the fact that I have wounds that I've been carrying around for probably 15 years at this point. I haven't dealt with them. What am I going to do now? Like, am I going to keep living this way? And we tried going to counseling. Long story short, about 3 months later, I remember it was the day after Thanksgiving. He went out with some of his friends. He was he was severely like alcoholic. He, looking back now, he really wasn't even functioning. He had went out with some friends and they had got, intoxicated. He came home and I'd never done this. And something just told me, like, if you're looking for an answer, whether you need to stay or leave, go through his phone. And I'd never done this. I wasn't that kind of person. And I did. And I called some numbers in his phone. One came back to an escort service right outside of base. Another one came back to an ex-girlfriend, and she was very gracious with me. And I just said, I just have some questions. And she answered them. And she was just like, I'm so sorry. He's an ex-boyfriend of mine, but he's been calling me the last couple months. We've been hanging out. I didn't even know he had a girlfriend, much less a wife. Like, I'm so sorry. And I just remember like collapsing on my kitchen floor at like 5 o'clock in the morning, dropping the phone. And I remember very distinctly, I will never forget it. I just remember God saying to me, like, are you done? And I was like, huh? And I like almost heard it audibly. And he was like, are you done? Like messing around? Like, are you just done doing all this stuff? And I was like, yeah. And he was just asking me, he was inviting me to like get healed and get whole. And so I literally that same day, like called my best friend at like 6 o'clock in the morning. I said, come to Clarksville, bring a U-Haul, I'm taking my stuff home. And I did, but I had to go home and tell my parents what was going on. I was 2 months from turning 30. I had a child that would have been like 8 at the time. And I was like, I need to move home and bring my kid with me. I don't even have a job. I went back to an old serving job at a restaurant at O'Charlie's that I had had for like years. And I just picked up the pieces of my life. But where it started was, and I think this is where the scars come in, is I had to heal. But more importantly, after I healed, I had to get to a place where I wasn't ashamed of the scars and I wasn't embarrassed by what I had been through, because after I had got healing, I carried around these scars that there was a lot of shame around them. So then I was like, okay, like I feel emotionally healed, but I'm like carrying around all this shame of like, I'm still the black sheep, I have this functioning family and all my cousins, and they're all out getting master's degrees, and they're like, doing big things with their lives, and like they're doing normal things like getting married and having kids and starting careers and making good money. And like, I'm just like, and we were always so close. So they were almost like siblings to me growing up. So I just had so much shame around my scars. And I thought, well, here I am, 30 years old. I'm working as a bartender at O'Charlie's. I live at home with my parents. Like, I've had an abortion. I've been married and divorced twice. Like, and I just decided at one point, I was like, what am I going to do? Am I going to continue to like be ashamed of my scars? Am I going to use them to propel me forward? Like, what am I going to do with them? Because the thing is, the scars are there. So it's even like a physical wound. I don't have a physical wound, but I imagine if something happened to me and I was in a wheelchair, I couldn't just be like, oh, I'm just going to act like I'm not in the wheelchair. Like that accident didn't happen. Like every day, the wheelchair is going to be staring me in the face when I roll out of bed. And it was the same thing with my scars. I'm like, yeah, you are 30 years old. Yes, you live at home with your parents. Yes, you've now been divorced twice. It was like every time I had to fill out anything like a legal document anywhere, just going to the doctor, and it would say, do you have any maiden names? It was like mortifying to me that like I had to put my maiden name and then 2 married names. Like, and I thought, this is so embarrassing. But I thought, I can act like it's not happening, but it is. It's going to be looking at me every day. So that's when I started, like, I hired a life coach. She really helped me. And I just decided, like, this is what I want to do for women. I want to show women that it's never too late to pull yourself out of the pit. I don't care what you've done. Like, listen, I've been through some stuff. If I can pull myself out of this pit, you can do it. I started a ministry where I help women that have had abortions. I do an 8-week Bible study with them where I help them find emotional healing because they don't have anyone else to talk to. I have my coaching business where I show women how to bring their lives out of the pit. And to redeem my story, I got married 3 years ago, again, to my third husband. He is an amazing person, but I was emotionally healed when I found him. So I found someone that's also emotionally healed. We have an amazing marriage. He is such a good person. He's about to graduate seminary. He's going to be a pastor. Like, my life looks completely different now. My daughter's 14 now. She's flourishing. Me and my husband are looking into adoption. Like, I have a ministry that I help post-abortive women. I have my coaching business where women literally, this is beautiful to me. Women literally pay me money to help them get out of the pit and then create an amazing life, regardless of their wounds and regardless of their scars. And like, I don't think any amount of money could like make up for the joy that I feel. Like when I see a woman, like the light in her eyes, when I'm like, you can't tell me anything that I haven't either heard or probably been through. You can get out of that pit.
Yep.
You can use those scars, and I don't care if you're 50. I have clients that are in their 50s. You can do whatever you want starting right now today. It's not too late. It's never too late. So that's really my story.
That's fantastic, and congratulations on the marriage, and
thank you.
On the upcoming. Is the adoption pending or
no? So we literally just got the packet in the mail with all the paperwork, and it is so much, but we've been in contact with an agency. They're so excited to work with us. We're excited to like get the ball rolling. So yeah, we're like beginning stages.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I hope it goes well for you.
Me too.
I have a couple nephews who are adopted. And
yes.
So my extended family has gone through that similar experience. I want to go back a little bit to where you said you hired a life coach. How did you go about finding one?
Okay. So this is funny how it happened for me. I had a really good friend that I actually used to party with when I went to college when I was 18. So way before I got pregnant, before my first marriage. We used to party together at the university, and I saw on Facebook that she was like, hey, I just started a life coaching business. I want to coach 10 women for free for 6 weeks. I want to get my feet wet, kind of. And I thought, I don't know what a life coach does, but I was in this place where I'm like, I was growing as an individual. I thought couldn't hurt. So I let her coach me for 6 weeks. It was mind blowing. And so I was like, I want to hire a coach. I didn't end up hiring her. The thing about coaches is you definitely want to find one that you connect with. It's just like finding a doctor or a pastor, like a church. You want to find someone that resonates with you. So I literally just got on Facebook and went into the search bar where you would search like hashtags and searched life coaches, and a couple popped up, and I went and watched some of their lives, found one I resonated with, and we had a consultation, and I just knew from like the first 5 minutes, I was like, yep, she's the one. Personality, we were just clicking. So I feel like I found mine in an unconventional way. You can really, truly, you can get on Google search, put in life coach, websites will start to pop up. Just start fishing around and figure out like whose message resonates with you, whose personality resonates with you. You can get into, I bet you could get on Instagram and go to like where you would search hashtags and search life coaching, because a lot of life coaches will actually use the hashtag life coach. I didn't know until I became a coach. Life coaches are everywhere. Like, now that I'm a life coach and I'm in that world, I'm like, oh my God, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. You can find them if you search for them. They're everywhere.
Yeah, it's like buying a new car. Once you buy that car, you see that car everywhere.
Yeah, you're like, wow, everybody has a yellow, Camaro. Okay, yeah, no, I get it.
Okay, and so and then stepping forward a little bit into your own business as a life coach, how did you start that?
Okay. So like I said, I worked with my coach for about 8 months, and she just really helped me transform my mindset. And I was like, I want to be what she's been for me. I want to be that for other women. I want to show them how to climb, like I call it that pit, like get out of that pit. You don't have to stay there. So she had a life coaching certification school as well, where she certified life coaches. I was like, let's do it, girl. And I signed up for it. I got certified, and really, I don't really have a glamorous story of that. I just kind of showed up on Facebook one day and I was like, hey guys, I'm a life coach. And that's really how it started a little over 2 years ago for me. But for over 2 years, I've continued to have a coach. I've done, business coaching, stuff like that. So I just continue to grow as a person. And as I grow as a person, the value that I put out into social media, have a private Facebook community, that kind of stuff. It just attracts more people, and my business has just grown from there. It's kind of word of mouth. Like friends kind of tag themselves, like they'll tag their friends in my Facebook group and stuff and be like, I'm offering challenges or worksheets or live videos, and it's just kind of taken off.
Excellent. Well, I wish you the best of luck. And so how many clients do you have currently?
I have 5 clients currently. I just shifted my niche a little bit. So I've got 5 clients right now that are kind of in my new niche. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, great. Well, I hope it goes well for you. And so
Thank you.
for our listeners and our viewers, what is something that you want to tell people that who might be in your situation or who might be starting to get out of their situation? What's something like a first step or two that you want to tell them to take?
The first step, it's going to sound like, ugh, that doesn't sound like a fun step. It's the ownership, because here's what ownership does. When you can take ownership for your part in your results in your life, for where you are, it actually gets you out of a victim mentality, because that victim mentality will make you think that life is just happening to you and you don't have control over it. And this can truly apply to people with like physical wounds and physical scars too, is like, if we think life is just happening to us and this thing or these situations just happen to us and there's nothing we can do about it and we're just stuck here, it puts us in that victim mentality of like, well, there's nothing I can do about it. And then we just think we'll be miserable or sad or in pain forever. So once we can kind of take a step back and really take ownership of like, what part did I play in getting here? Or what part am I playing in staying stuck here? Because I also have to realize, with your podcast, a lot of times you're talking to people that maybe have physical wounds, physical scars that they didn't bring on themselves. But if they're in a place where they feel stuck, even mentally and emotionally, it's like, okay, maybe I didn't cause this accident or whatever, maybe I didn't choose to be born with this, but what can I take ownership of that's keeping me stuck in place? Because once we take ownership, then we can be like, oh, well, if I'm the one keeping myself stuck in place, then I have full control to get myself unstuck. So for me, I would tell them the first step, really, as much as it doesn't sound like fun, and it might be a little, ugh, is just taking that ownership of like, what part did I play to either get myself here, or what part am I playing to keep myself stuck here?
Excellent. And so where are some places that people can find you if they want to reach out to you and learn more about your story, or maybe even talk to you about, taking you on as a coach?
Yeah. I have a website, whitneybarbary.com. My last name is spelled Barbary. It's kind of a weird one. whitneybarbary.com. And then you can also find me I'm on IG a little bit. It is whitney.barbary. But if you really want to connect, I'm on Facebook. You can just look Whitney Barbary up. There's not a lot of us. Or you can look up Whitney Barbary Coaching. That will take you right to my business page. But I share a lot of my story there, a lot of encouragement, like just a lot of like how to get out of that pit, action steps you can take, how to transform your mindset, how to break up with the shame about like where you've been in your life. So definitely find me either at whitneybarbary.com or Facebook. That's where I hang out the most.
Excellent. And thank you so much, Whitney. And finally, my last question. Everyone wants to know about this. What is your favorite dinosaur?
I had to look it up because it's the one. It was the Velociraptor. I couldn't remember the name of it. I always remembered it from Jurassic Park. It was the ones that like attacked that one guy, but I thought they were so funny because they're not on all fours. They like run on their hind legs and then they have those little arms. And I was like, these things are hilarious. So those have always been my favorite dinosaur.
Gotcha. Well, thanks for letting me know. I know the audience is going to be excited to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you once again, Whitney, for sharing
your story. Oh my God. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Please have a great day and blessings on all your journeys.
Thank you.
Hey, I hope you really enjoyed that conversation with Whitney. If you want to reach out to her, you can find her at whitneybarbary.com. You can also look her up on Facebook and any search engine at Whitney Barbary Coaching. And you can also find her at whitney.barbary on Instagram. If you want to find out more about my speaking and coaching, you can look me up at chrisdtgordon.com. You can find me on Facebook and YouTube at Chris DT Gordon, and then at Chris DT Gordon is where you'll find me on Instagram. Then there's always my podcast, Scar Bearers, which you can find on Apple Podcasts, another place where you like to listen to fun and informative things. Yeah, we'll go with that. All right, so Thanks so much for joining me today. Please have a great day and remember to pass on perfection and go for greatness.